I believe that you're willing to write larger policies and reinsurance than anyone else, but that you still insist on the amount of your liability being capped. I'm wondering, with your investments in companies that have exposure to asbestos, have you somehow capped that, or is that unlimited, especially given joint and several liability? My second question involves auto insurance, and I was wondering, does State Farm's structure as a mutual insurance company compensate it or help it compensate for having a higher cost structure, because over the long term it need only remain solvent and not provide an adequate return on capital to its investors?
The first question on asbestos, we have not put any significant money, to our knowledge, in any company that has any asbestos exposure. Now, you know, we have a small amount of money in USG, where the subsidiary United States Gypsum has a major asbestos exposure, but that's a very, very minor investment. That would be the only one that I can think of. We've walked away from several deals that were quite attractive in every respect except asbestos, but that's like saying, you know, to a 120-year-old, you know, good health except for the fact that you're dead. So we don't go near asbestos. Now, in terms of our retroactive insurance policies, we are taking over the liabilities of companies that have lots of asbestos exposure. And in that case, we assume that those contracts will be paid in full. I mean, we make no assumption of any reduction in asbestos costs, but we do cap them. There's a couple things you can't cap in insurance. You can't cap workers' compensation losses. I mean that you can as a reinsurer, but I mean the primary insurer can't do that. I believe in auto, for example, in the UK that it's uncapped, and I think that nobody thought that was very serious until they had a recent accident that caused I think it involved a car doing something an auto doing something to a train that was unbelievable. So there are a few areas where insurance is written on an uncapped basis, and in our case we write some auto insurance in the UK, and we write some workers' comp primarily in California. But generally in the reinsurance business you are capping the liabilities you take on. I mean, obviously when we bought General Re, they had asbestos liabilities from reinsurance contracts they'd written, but the reinsurance companies are pretty careful about writing unlimited policies. We write huge limits. We're the biggest, you know, if somebody wants to write a huge limit or an unusual limit, they should call us, because there's no one else in the world that will act as big or as promptly as we will. But we don't write things that are unlimited. Now, the interesting thing is that the biggest exposures, in our view, are the people that write a lot of primary business and don't have the catastrophe cover they need. I mean, if you write 10% of all the business in homeowners or 15% on Long Island or in Florida, I mean, you are writing a catastrophe cover that would blow your mind. If you're Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae and you're guaranteeing mortgages, you know, for millions of people in areas like that, and they don't have insurance, earthquake in California, or proper insurance in Florida, they'd be less likely to have earthquakes someplace. You are taking on enormous risks. I mean, huge risks, far beyond what we would ever take on. But you don't get paid for them, unfortunately. I mean, just take the New Madrid section of Missouri down in the corner. That was the area of three of the greatest quakes. They're sort of related in time. Certainly in the recorded history, they were the three greatest quakes in the United States. You know, how much homeowners business, how much commercial property business does somebody have in that huge territory, which supposedly caused church bells to ring in Boston when it happened back in whatever it was, 1807 or 9 or something like that. So there are all kinds of risks that can aggregate in huge ways that companies are not thinking about at all. I mean, I don't know whether Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, for example, is demanding that all of the homes they insure in the 300 miles radius of New Madrid have earthquake insurance. But that sort of thing never comes to mind until the unthinkable happens. But in insurance, the unthinkable always happens. State Farm, as a competitor, is a mutual company, and it has a huge amount of net worth. You referred to them as a high cost operator or higher cost, but they're really a relatively low cost operator. But they're not anywhere near as low cost as Geico. But they're a low cost operator compared to many people in the insurance business. And it's certainly true that they do not have the demands for profitability, partly because they've done such a great job in the past and built up so much surplus. I have nothing but basically good things to say about what State Farm has done over the years. They do not need, they can subsidize to some extent current auto policy holders with the profits that were derived from auto policy holders of the past. But that's always true when a stock company competes with a mutual company. And, we know that when we go in the business. And that's true of, there are a lot of other mutual companies out there that operate without the demands of earning a high return on capital. But if I were State Farm, I'd probably be doing what they're doing. I don't criticize them at all. Charlie?
Well, I don't criticize State Farm either. State Farm is one of the most interesting business stories in the United States. The idea that it could get as big as it is and has as good a distribution system as it does, it's a thoroughly admirable company. In fact, Berkshire has bought insurance from State Farm, not auto insurance.
Geico still has a lower cost structure. I mean, it is a great business operation, and we have invested significantly to build that because it is so attractive. And as I pointed out in the annual report, the incremental investment we made last year did not produce the same results as incremental investments in previous years. So we are finding it hard to grow the business under current circumstances on a basis that we would like to. But it's a wonderful business, and it has a business model that I wouldn't trade for anything.